For generations, this was simply how gardening worked. Every spring, you'd take a shovel or a tiller and you'd turn the earth, breaking it apart, flipping it over, preparing it to receive new seeds. It felt productive. It felt necessary. But over the last few years, more and more gardeners, from small balcony growers to large-scale farmers, have been quietly walking away from this tradition. They've stopped digging, they've stopped tilling, and their gardens, by most accounts, are doing better than ever. This is the story of no-till gardening, what it is, why it works, and why it might be the single most impactful change you make to your growing space this year. To understand why gardeners are giving up tilling, it helps to understand what tilling actually does to soil in the first place. When you dig or till, you're not just loosening the ground. You're completely disrupting an entire ecosystem that lives beneath your feet. Healthy soil isn't just dirt. It's a living structure built up over time by fungi, bacteria, earthworms, and countless microorganisms working together. These organisms build networks, tiny tunnels and fibers that hold soil together, create pockets for air and water, and slowly break down organic matter into nutrients plants can use. Every time you till, you tear through this network. Fungal threads that took months to form are severed in seconds. Earthworm tunnels collapse. Microbial communities are scattered and exposed to sunlight and air, which kills off huge portions of them almost instantly. In short, tilling resets your soil back to a more lifeless, unstructured state, and then asks it to support a garden anyway. The effects of tilling don't stop at the moment you put the shovel down. They ripple outward for the rest of the growing season, and often for years afterward. Erosion is the first cost. Tilled soil has no structure to hold it in place. When it rains, instead of water slowly soaking in, it runs straight across the surface, carrying topsoil and the nutrients within it away with it. Over time, this is how once fertile land becomes thin and depleted. Water loss is the second cost. That same soil structure that erosion destroys is also what allows soil to hold moisture. Tilled soil dries out faster, which means more frequent watering, more stress on your plants, and more time spent standing over a hose. Weed pressure is the third cost, and it's often the most surprising one. Buried underneath the surface of almost every garden bed is a seed bank, thousands of dormant weed seeds waiting for the right conditions. Tilling brings them up to the surface, exposes them to sunlight, and effectively invites them to germinate. In other words, the very act of tilling to clean up a garden bed is often what causes the next wave of weeds. And finally, there's the labor cost. Digging and tilling are physically demanding. It's one of the main reasons gardening starts to feel like a chore rather than a relaxing hobby, especially as beds get larger or as gardeners get older. So if you're not digging or tilling, what do you actually do instead? The core idea behind no-till gardening is simple. Instead of disturbing the soil to prepare it, you build on top of it and let the soil's own biology do the rest of the work. Here's what that looks like in practice. Step 1. Leave the soil structure intact. Whatever is already growing, even weeds, gets cut at the base instead of pulled or dug out. The roots are left in the ground where they slowly decompose and add organic matter rather than tearing up the surrounding soil to remove them. Step 2. Add a layer of compost. A generous layer of finished compost is spread directly on top of the bed. This immediately begins feeding the soil biology just beneath the surface without disturbing it. Step 3. Add mulch. On top of the compost, a layer of mulch, straw, shredded leaves, or wood chips, depending on what you're growing, is added. This layer does several jobs at once. It suppresses weed germination by blocking light, it holds moisture in the soil, and it slowly breaks down to feed the soil even further. Step 4. Plant directly into this layered bed. When it's time to plant, you're not digging up the whole bed. You're simply making a small hole or furrow just large enough for your seed or seedling straight through the compost and mulch layer into the soil below. Step 5. Repeat the layering each season. Rather than resetting the bed by tilling, You simply add another layer of compost and mulch at the start of each new season. Over time, this builds a rich, dark, loose layer of topsoil, without a single pass of a tiller. It might seem like skipping a step, like you're doing less work and hoping for the best. But the results tell a different story. Because the underground network of fungi and microorganisms stays intact, plants in no-till beds are often able to access nutrients and water more efficiently. Some fungi form direct partnerships with plant roots, extending their reach into the soil far beyond what the roots could access alone. Because the surface stays covered, water is retained far longer after rain or watering, which means less time spent watering and plants that handle dry spells with far less stress. Because weed seeds are never brought to the surface and exposed to light, weed pressure drops significantly over time. Not overnight, but season after season, as the existing seed bank gradually depletes without being replenished. And because you're not spending hours breaking up compacted soil every season, the physical effort required to maintain a no-till garden tends to decrease over time, even as the garden itself becomes more productive. This is really the heart of why gardeners are making this shift. No-till gardening isn't about doing less out of laziness. It's about working with the soil's natural processes instead of constantly fighting against them. A few questions tend to come up whenever someone considers switching to no-till gardening for the first time. What if my soil is already compacted or in bad shape? You don't need perfect soil to start. In fact, no-till methods are often recommended specifically for compacted or depleted soil because the layering approach gradually rebuilds structure from the top down without adding to the damage through further disturbance. Do I need special tools? Not really. A hand trowel for planting and something to spread compost and mulch is generally all that's required. In many ways, no-till gardening requires less specialized equipment than traditional tilling. Will this work in containers, not just garden beds? Yes, the same core principle applies. Instead of digging out and replacing all the soil in a container each season, you can top dress with fresh compost between plantings, disturbing the existing root systems and soil structure as little as possible. How long before I see a difference? Some benefits, like improved moisture retention, are noticeable within the first season. Others, like reduced weed pressure and improved soil structure, tend to build gradually, becoming clearly visible over 1 to 2 years of consistent layering. At its core, no-till gardening is a shift in mindset as much as it is a shift in method. Instead of viewing soil as something to be broken down and rebuilt each season, it treats soil as something already alive, something that, left largely undisturbed and simply fed from above, can do most of the hard work on its own. It's slower, it's quieter, and for many gardeners, it's turned what once felt like a season of hard labor into something closer to what gardening was always meant to be, a way to work alongside nature rather than against it. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. We're building a calm, practical space for people who want to grow things the right way. And I'll see you in the next one.